So today I will be talking about a feature known as mass extinction. Ever since the beginning of life, creation of life, there was always a, a factor working for death. So along with life came death. So if we look at the history of mm, life, you'd see that there were certain ages where there was a lot of species, say, suddenly they died out. One thing which you clearly remember is that suddenly all the dinosaurs, they died out. They became extinct. A mass scale of extinction happened, and there are certain recorded mass extinctions, and there are certain reasons for extinctions. What are these reasons for extinctions? We will discuss about all these reasons today. So with this, I will share my whiteboard today. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you able to see my writing, mass extinction?
হ্যাঁ স্যার দেখা যাচ্ছে।
Okay, great. So we will be talking about mass extinctions. So what is extinction? Unlike, it is nothing abnormal, it is a natural process. It is a natural process. What happens in this natural process? Suddenly a species ceases to exist, they die out. They die out till no one left. And what are the evidences of extinction? The biggest evidence of extinction you can find out is in fossils. They remain embedded in sedimentary rocks in the form of, say, molds, casts, petrified remains, shells. Also, not only that, you can find their excreta, gives gut content, footprints, etc. So many ways by which you can see that these organisms, they, this particular species existed. Now what could be the reason for such extinction? There could be several reasons for such extinction. You can say climate change, some meteors impact, volcanic activity. It can be some geological activity. It can be many of such processes which occur, and as a result of which extinction takes place. So extinction, extinction is a continuous process. Extinction is a NUOUS, continuous process, and this occurs at a background rate, keeps on happening, but this background rate is low. So we gradually one or two species keep on dying out. You rarely feel it, but over a span of millions of years, there have been periods. There have been periods where suddenly mass extinctions occurred. They occurred in such a manner that the actual uh, geography and biodiversity of the earth, they changed. There was a total change in biodiversity. There was a total change in the biodiversity, change in dominant species. There were changes in population and community parameters. All these events started to take place. Changes, all these changes occurred. So approximately in these periods, 50% of the Earth's species vanished. Now let us see what is background extinction mechanism. We are not talking about mass extinction, background extinction. The background extinction mechanism. This is actually a background extinction mechanism. This is typically long long term, multi generational. Loss of reproductive fitness, and this is why they reproduce less, and this results in, because of both environmental and genetic factors. So this reason is evolution. First is evolution. This evolution is a positive force. It leads to adaptation and speciation. There is another term, devolution. This is a negative force, and this results in population decline and background extinctions. So both of them, this is the first mechanism which occurs. We are talking about mechanisms now. Both of these are products of natural selection. Next mechanism of all species, only a small proportion are in the process of background extinction. Not all the species are becoming extinct, but a very small proportion of them are in the process of background extinction. At any particular time, they are slowly dying out. You can write that they are slowly dying out. But when mass extinction takes place, the proportion increases. Next, we go to the third. under conditions of continuing adverse climatic change so the climate is constantly changing among long-lived species selection will shift from population reproductive fitness population to individual reproductive দাঁড়া মা পড়াচ্ছি আমি এখন পড়াচ্ছি ক্লাস এই so from population reproductive fitness the selection force goes to individual reproductive fitness under changing climatic conditions so changing adverse climatic conditions according to the law of natural selection some individuals get benefit of reproductive fitness or they die out if they some so for some it is perfect for some they die out these are for we are talking for long lived animals if the condition for long lived animals if everything is fine and all you're getting lots of food money and everything you you a lot of space you have lot of things you keep on reproducing your reproductive fitness but for poor normally for when you don't get all these things you ultimately your reproductive fitness falls down then in short lived organisms the next point we're talking about short lived organisms what happens in them they maintain low levels of genetic variations they maintain low levels of genetic variations and along with this they also have high reproductive capacities so because of low Genetic variations, they have low adaptive potential to severe environmental shifts. And are subject to rapid extinction. Because their life is small, suddenly it changes, they are gone. Now, background extinction is divided into two phases which are continuous. First is habitat attenuation, and the second is habitat dissolution. Now, what is habitat attenuation? It is that process which precludes, one means it comes before survival of progeny, because of continuous loss of suitable habitat. Continuous loss of suitable habitat. The next is habitat dissolution. It is the final stage of background extinction. It is the final stage of background extinction. So, the habitat in which the species flourished disappeared, and species has few or no adaptive power to permit successful reproduction. So this is a very important question. What is the mechanism of background extinction? So these 5 points, you have to give these 5 points. And then there is the next part we will be talking about causes of background extinction. So what are the causes of background extinction? First, of course, is climatic shift. Maximum happens, the climate changes, they die. Climatic shifts. Next are biological factors. Now, what are these biological factors? You have read most of them. Competition, disease, predation, and there is one more thing, co-extinction. Competition, complete competitors cannot coexist, or one competes the other out. Disease, some disease comes and the species die out. Predation, over predation, and co-extinction. If one species is dependent on another species for its life, that and the dependent, the one on which it is dependent, if it dies out, this species also dies out. So this is one of the cause. It happens gradually. So these are the most important factors, causes for background extinction. So now let us go to the next part, that is phases. I have already talked about this, phases of extinction. And what are the phase? The first one is habitat attenuation, and the second phase is habitat dissolution. In what it happens? Continuous loss of habitat. What it results? Loss of reproductive fitness. You're destroying forests, so all the organisms gradually the forests are going away, and gradually organisms which live in the forest, they are losing their reproductive fitness because they don't have the habitat. And the final phase, it is total loss of habitat. Total loss of reproductive fitness, and they die out. Now we go to the next part, which is mass extinction. So it is, as I defined, it is a widespread and rapid decrease in the biodiversity of the earth. During this phase, the rate of extinction is greater than the rate of speciation. So there is a sharp decrease in the biodiversity. You can say that the great oxygenation event it occurred 2.45 billion years ago. That is, from a reducing atmosphere, it became into an oxygenated atmosphere during the origin of life. It was probably the greatest mass extinction event. So let us talk about what are the major mass extinction events. Events and their causes. So the first one which goes is the Ordovician Silurian extinction events. Ordovician Silurian extinction events. So it takes place in the end Ordovician. If you study the geological age, there was an Ordovician age and a Silurian age during this time. So roughly this took place something like 450 to 440 million years ago. So between the Ordovician Silurian age transition. So two events occurred and they killed off 27% of all families of organisms. They killed off 57% of all genera and 60 to 70% of all species they were killed off. This is the second largest of five major extinction events. The next is the late Devonian extinction. This occurred 375 to 360 million years ago. Near the Devonian Carboniferous transition. Devonian Carboniferous transition. What happened? 19% of all families killed off. 19% of all families, 50% of all genera, and 70% of all species, they were killed off. This event lasted as long as 20 million years. But in this 20 million years, there were pulses of extinction. That is, suddenly they say this is the span of 20 million years. Suddenly in this region, there is a lot of extinction in this region. Suddenly here again, and a lot of extinction. A lot of extinction. A lot of extinction happens. Maybe these are periods of relative calm over here in these regions. So there were evidence of pulses of extinction. Then we come across to the third one. That is the Permian Triassic extinction event. Permian Triassic extinction events. So this occurred during the end Permian age. So roughly 252 million years ago, during the Permian Triassic, during the Permian and Triassic transition, when the Permian age was giving way to the Triassic. And this is considered the Earth's largest extinction event. Most of them, what happened during this time? They killed off 57% of all families. 83% of all genera. And 90 to 96% of all species. All species, they were killed off during this time. This is also known as the Great Dying. And what was its impact? The impact was end of mammal-like reptile age of reptiles ended. The dinosaurs ended. End of mammal-like reptiles. Now the greatest the dinosaur period has come. The dinosaur extinction. This is the Triassic Jurassic extinction events. The Triassic Jurassic extinction events. So, end Triassic, beginning of Jurassic, the extinction event started. So, 201.3 million years ago, at the Triassic Jurassic transition. %23 of all families died out. Died out. 48% of all genera died out. And 70 to 75% of all species died out. All species, they died out. So most non-dinosaurus archosaurs. Archosaurs are the group of the crocodiles. Most therapsids. হ্যাঁ বাবা বলো। কার তোমার? দেখো স্পন্ডিলাইটিস হচ্ছে। প্রেশারটা কম হয়েছে, একটু মেপে নাও। হ্যাঁ প্রেশার পড়েছে, প্রেশার ফল পড়েছে। কাকে? আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ। অলমাইটি 20 খাচ্ছ, আর কি অন্য একটা ওষুধ দিয়েছিল না তোমায়? হ্যাঁ তাহলে ওটা অলমাইটি 20টা একটু বন্ধ রেখো। কিন্তু অলমাইটি 20টা বন্ধ করার থেকেও জিগডুয়োর থেকে করা, কেন অলমাইটি 20 তোমার কিডনি প্রোটেকশন দেবে। মানে ডায়াবেটিক কিডনিতে যে ড্যামেজটা হয়, অলমাইটি 20 ওটার প্রোটেকশনও দেয়। তো জিগডুয়োর ওখানে একটা কিছু, আরএস ঘোষের সঙ্গে কথা বলো। হ্যাঁ বললো, অলমাইটিটা কি বন্ধ রাখতে বলেছে? আচ্ছা, অলমাইটিটা হুট করে বন্ধ করে দিও না। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ 10 অলমেসার 10টা খাও। অলমাইটি 10 তো পাবে না তুমি। মানে অলমেসার 10 পেয়ে যাবে, ওটার একটু দাম বেশি। ওটাকে অর্ধেক করতে পারবে ওই ছোট ওষুধটাকে? হ্যাঁ ওটাকে অর্ধেক করে খাও তাহলে। ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে। আর একটু নুন জল খাও তাহলে, একটু নুন জল খেও। হ্যাঁ 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 ঠিক আছে। হুম হুম আচ্ছা আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। না মাকে বেশি কিছু বলার দরকার নেই, হাফ করে নাও। প্রেশার কমেছে, তুমি একটু ইয়ে খাও, খাবার দাবার কম খাও, একটু নুন জল খাও। প্রেশার বাড়ানো তো একটু হালকা নুন জল খেলেই প্রেশার বেড়ে যাবে। খাবারে একটু নুনটা বাড়িয়ে দাও ব্যাস। হ্যাঁ ইলেকট্রল ওয়াটার খেতে পারো, প্রেশার বেড়ে যাবে। সুগারটাও ঢুকবে না, ওটা ভালো না, তার থেকে নুন জল খাওয়াই ভালো। ঠিক আছে আমি রাখছি, আমি একটা ক্লাস নিচ্ছি, হ্যাঁ আমি তোমাকে কল করছি। হুম হুম। So most non-dinosaurs archosaurs, most therapsid, therapsid and most of the large amphibians beings were eliminated. And now we go to the fifth one, the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction. Cretaceous, বাবা হাতের লেখা খারাপ হয়ে গেছে, আজকের ক্লাসে অনেক লেখা আছে। Cretaceous Paleocene extinctions. This is the famous extinction which I will talk about later in details. That is the KT extinction. Some people call it the KPG extinction. It occurred 66 million years ago at the Cretaceous Paleogene transition. gene transition. They occurred during this time. So 17% of all families, 50% of all genera GENERA, and 75% all species died. During this period, dinosaurs became extinct. There are a lot of reasons which we'll be discussing in the next class. And now modern researchers says that we are living in another age of extinction currently. And this is the Holocene Holocene extinction. This is our current age. Now, what are the causes for these mass extinctions? First, they call it the flood basalt events. Formation of large igneous, there are igneous rocks. Formation of large igneous provinces by flood basalt. Basalt is a mineral. Suddenly regions become flooded with these basalt events. And these were because of maybe produced dust and particulate, aerosols. Because of this region, they this dust did not allow the sunlight to fall. They inhibited photosynthesis. And once you inhibit photosynthesis, you cause food chain collapse. You cause a food chain collapse. Then these large flood basalt events, they resulted in sulfur dioxide, sulfur oxide emissions. And sulfur oxide means sulfuric acid, and you had acid rains. And they poisoned many organisms and plant life. Global warming from these CO2 emissions. Then you had the next event, next cause could have been fall in sea levels, ice. And this fall in sea level, it resulted in decrease of continental shelf. So this region is the continental shelf. This is the land and this is the sea. This region actually is biodiversity rich region. So if the continental shelf area, the sea level fell and the continental shelf went away, it went directly into the deep sea, and so the region for biodiversity they decreased. This is one region, one reason. And the third is impact events. Asteroids or comets, impact, dust, heat, similar because of these things are formed, and block sunlight, block in photosynthesis, collapse of food chain. This is one region. The dinosaurs died out because of this meteorite and all these reasons. Sulfur, the sulfur oxide and all these things started to come. Then the natural global cooling because of tilt in the earth's climate changes, natural changes in earth's climate. You have the ice age coming. You had these glaciation cycles. Many species died out because of this. Then opposite to global cooling, the same thing happened with global warming. Many of these ice age species they died out. Then we talk about the clathrate gun hypothesis. A short question may come. So methane clathrates in which water molecules are the cage. Small bullet like thing are cage. They form on continental shelves. shelves. These clatlets are likely to break up rapidly and release the methane. So you have a layer of water, actually it's ice, and in between you have CH4 trapped. What happens? And they are formed on continental shelves. Then global warming happens. Ice melts and methane is released. And when and methane has got 20 times more global warming effect. That results in severe global warming. And the last point today, and the second last point today, which we'll be talking, it is about certain, and as the seventh point, anoxic events. Now, what are these anoxic events? Because of, say, for example, volcanism, suddenly the middle and upper layer of oceans become deficient in oxygen, and so many species they die. At the same time, you also have hydrogen sulfide emissions from seas. And this upsets the photosynthetic balance in the ocean, weakens ozone layer, and finally you have the oceanic overturn. So oceanic overturn, it is a disruption of thermohaline circulation. That is, what is haline? Haline is salt and thermo is heat. So salt in the upper layer and lower layer, they keep on cycling. There is a salt concentration, a stratified concentration of salt in the ocean. Upper layer more, middle layer much more, then it's much more, something like this. So there is a continuous circulation of this salinity up and low, down. So what happens is when this oceanic overturn comes, upper layer, which is more saline than deeper, layer, that is because upper layer there is more evaporation, water goes up, so the salt concentration and is different, and you have a lot of organisms adapted to the salinity. Sudden change in the salinity, when suddenly the upper layer becomes less saline, salinity, when upper layer becomes less saline, suddenly everything dies. That this causes extinction. So I will end my class today. The next class I will be talking about. In the next class, I will be talking about KT extinctions in much details, because that is something where you have a lot of questions which come. The KT extinction, formerly called, or the KPG extinction. So do you people have got any questions? Any questions? Questions আছে? কারুর কোনো কিছু বলার আছে?
স্যার এখান থেকে কোয়েশ্চেন কেমন আসবে?
এখান থেকে questions. What is KT extinction? What are the causes of mass extinction? What are the causes, or what are the different extinction events? Write a short note on the different extinction events. What is the mechanism of background extinction? What is background extinction? These are the type of questions which you can expect from this. There are a lot of questions which you can expect here. ঠিক আছে? So these are the questions. This is an easy chapter, but I went in details about this. Slowly লিখে লিখে এগুলো তোমরা লিখে নাও, তোমাদের নোটসও লাগবে না, এগুলো ভালো করে ইয়ে করে নাও। হ্যাঁ, you write it down. I'll send you the video recordings also. It is automatically saved here. You can access anytime. আর I have taught from Ajay Pal, and unfortunately in this COVID situation, just a week and a half ago Ajay Pal expired, mara gechen uni because of COVID. It's a very sad loss to the zoological community here. Kollanite Chakdate পড়াতেন উনি, COVID এতে this was the latest victim, and but his books still remain. I hope somebody takes up the job and modifies his books and all these things. So অজয় পালের বইয়েতে থেকে পড়াচ্ছি, এক্সটিংশনটা ভালো করেই রয়েছে ওটাতে। ঠিক আছে, any more questions? Okay, then I'm ending my class here. On Wednesday 10 o'clock I will again take class. ঠিক আছে, KT extension.